Hi everybody and welcome back to the EUDAIMONIA Connection podcast. On today's show we're going to be speaking to Peter Hoare, who's from Sydney, who is a good friend of mine, who actually really inspired me because I remember when I used to work with him in corporate, we were living a drudgerous life and I saw the way that he took his knowledge and his talent and he went out and actually found happiness and inspiration through that, and he did that on his own. So let's welcome to the show Peter Hoare. Hi Peter.
Hi Joey, good to be here.
Yes, it's good. I've been really looking forward to interviewing you because, you know, sometimes when you think about inspiration, you have these people that pop into your head and you've been one of those people. So I'm glad that you're here and you can actually share with the audience, I guess, through the questions we ask you, how you find inspiration. So before we start, I know that I've interviewed you before, but this is a different podcast. Do you want to just tell the audience about what you do?
Okay, so I wear many hats. I am a counsellor and I am an educator, so I run workshops for people. I also specialise at the moment in the area of dementia, where I work for Dementia Australia doing counselling and education. One of my other hats is I'm an energy intuitive, and so I support people with intuitive readings, intuitive guidance, and I teach meditation. I run personal development workshops. I suppose, you know, the foundation of all of this is to support people no matter what's going on in your life. My way of looking at this is you're okay, you're enough, and, you know, and to support yourself, you know, with self-care. And that's kind of comes out in all of the different hats that I wear. Yeah. I'm also a body electric facilitator and a few other things.
You're a superhero in my eyes. But like I just found out just then that I didn't know that you worked for Dementia Australia. So, wow, that's huge. I mean, like, did you do that like because of an experience, or did you do that because it just found you?
It was a bit of both. It was actually before COVID. I was looking for something a couple of days a week just to give me a different level of balance. And so I started working there on the helpline, and then I moved into one of their counsellor roles, and so I do some counselling there for a person in the early stages of dementia or their family or carers, and then I also educate family carers to you know, with some tools and I suppose supports to be able to manage the journey. So I've been doing that, so it's about 2.5 years I've been there, and it's kind of grown as well. I'm really enjoying it because you know, it's actually personal as well. You know, my dad had progressive supranuclear palsy, which had dementia as one of the end stages of that disease, and my aunt currently has Alzheimer's disease, and so you know, dementia is something that touches all of us. And a lot of times when we're looking at personal growth and personal development, you know, we don't really, you know, want to focus on end of life or big issues or things that really, you know, make us really fragile, you know, with you know, treading water to support somebody. But it's so important, you know, because all those skills of being present, being mindful, you know, need to be the tools that we use.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. Like, I was going to say, it's not a subject that a lot of people want to talk about, isn't it? Like, you know, like I've got a few family members who have passed away with dementia and no one's really spoken about it. So I think it's really good. So the first question I normally ask all the people that come on the show is, what's your interpretation? How do you know when you're fulfilling you know, happiness? How do you know that you're there?
Well, that's a good question, especially at a time like this, because, you know, I suppose in this mid or post-COVID sort of area that we're in right now, we're not really sure exactly what to call it. You know, there's a lot of impatience and a lot of frustration that people are feeling generally. And I feel it, and a lot of other people out there are feeling it. But one thing that I find is when I'm feeling that sense of fulfillment or happiness is when I'm able to grab myself in those moments of just stopping and being present and enjoying what's happening where I am. It's the stopping and enjoying and being present. And when I'm able to do that, then it gives me a sense of greater fulfillment. as opposed to needing to rush, because the
Right.
sign of, if we're rushing, it means there's
So when you
stress
stop, you feel like, is it like, being in the moment is just enjoying what's there, isn't it? So if you have something that's beautiful, I guess you get a sense of, oh my God, you connect with that. So it's really about connecting with whatever's around. Because a lot of people, it's funny because I was asking a client the other day about this question, and she doesn't notice anything. And so it's interesting how you said the word rush, because that was her explanation to why she doesn't. People rush and they don't really pay attention to what's actually there, and then they miss it.
Yeah, I heard someone say the other day that if you talk fast, eat fast, or drive fast, then you're experiencing stress.
Right.
And I wouldn't say I drive fast. Sometimes I can talk fast, but I definitely eat fast. And so it actually, it was actually, we don't always realize when we're picking up stress, when we're feeling it in our body, because we've been through so much over the last couple of years, and this has become our new norm, where we're seeing and experiencing even more so now, more than we would have 20 years ago, let alone our parents and grandparents, what they would have experienced in a week or a year or something like that. We're exposed to so much, and we do need to stop. We do need to find that stop. Last year, actually, because Sydney was much luckier than Melbourne with the COVID lockdown, when we went into that, several months lockdown, at the beginning of it, I got a kayak, and I just needed to be on the water, and it was just, for me, it's like a meditation. And so if I have had a paddle, then I'm having a great week. I'm having a great day. If I can get out 2 or 3 times a week, I feel very good. We've had a lot of rain, so it's been hard lately, but I've been out a few times in the last few days. And it's just, finding that thing that supports you to stop and enjoy this moment.
Yeah. Okay. Peter Hoare, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
So let's start your questions. Okay.
Oh, I thought we
started.
Cool.
No, it's starting now. So the first question is, what is invisible in you that people can't see?
Oh, okay. What's invisible? Something
that I guess that you don't show people, something that's, and it is really asking you to share your something that's private, that's invisible.
Yeah.
What would be something that people don't know about you that's invisible to them?
Well, I would probably say that I hold space better for other people than I have in the past, and and wavering for myself. And so there's so sometimes people might think that they might project that I'm really calm and I'm really this, or I'm really or everyone's going to have a projection, so people will have like an idea of who you are, Joey, or who I am. But for me, it's like there's a lot going on. I have quite an analytical mind, and I don't share all of my thoughts and ideas with everybody, and I have my wavering doubts and fears and stuff that I have to work through. So I don't show that to everybody. So it can be. I mean,
do you think that's got to do with? Well, do you think that's because what you're literally saying is that I'm human, but do you think that people look at you and think that you are immune to things because of maybe your work or your spiritual practices, or so people sometimes because I get that a lot. Like a lot of people think that you're fine, but in reality I'm going through like a bad day, and they don't understand that because they say, why are you having a bad day? And it's really quite weird. Yeah. So is that what you're saying?
Yes. And so sometimes when you're a space holder for other people, when you need space held for you, others don't always get it or understand it, because they think that you've been through the journey and that you're out on the other side. The onion has peeled and there's nothing more, to peel off. And so I think sometimes then it can be a little bit of a surprise when it's like, oh, I'm having a bad day and I really need to vent.
And if I can add something to that, I think, again, this is just from my experience, not from yours, but I think it's really important for listeners to know that it's always important to ask everyone if they're okay. It's sometimes assuming that someone's fine doesn't necessarily mean that they're okay, because some of the most visually present people or visually okay people are the ones that are suffering. So I think if I can just add that to the end. Pete, like,
definitely.
Again, these questions, don't forget, I didn't pick them, okay? So if you were to think back about your friendships with people, what would be one of the weirdest experiences you've had with a friend?
Oh, one of the weirdest experiences. Okay, I can think of a few weird experiences. Okay, weird's actually a really interesting
Well, I guess
word.
odd, unusual.
Yeah.
It's, you think, oh my God, this is something out of a movie, or this is not normal.
Okay. Do you know what? The first thing that comes to mind is that I had this friend, and we've known each other for many years, and then I think both of us went through a little bit of a change, and she, this friend, we kind of stopped being in touch, and then I tried to reconnect, and she wasn't interested anymore, and I kind of felt, that it took me a while to really let it go, because what was strange for me was that how could somebody hold on to something for a long time? Because eventually, it's draining. You've got to let stuff go, and I just found it was a bit sort of weird, and I don't even know what was being held on to in a sense. And so I suppose what was strange to me was the fact that she's a part. We're each a part of each other's history, and we shared amazing times together. And it's sad. Life is so short from my perspective, life is so short to actually hold on to stuff.
I know, but you know, and we both know that sometimes people's egos do hold on, and they don't. It's like they sort of make the situation about themselves rather than looking beyond. I don't know. I get it, because I've had similar things happen to me.
Yeah, but do you know what? And this is me. That I talk to clients about this all the time. About in the bigger picture, and you've moved on, and perhaps even you're at a different level of energy or whatever it is. But when you're experiencing it, I suppose it's like talking about COVID and actually catching COVID. When you experience it, I'm sure it's very different to actually, philosophizing about it. And so that's the thing. And so, for me, that actually took me through, through a process.
Do you think it's a feeling of loss and rejection and grief that we were talking about? Like, do you think that's what it might be? Yeah. Because I'll tell you something quickly, because I know this is about you, but I remember when Mum passed away, my best friend didn't call me, and he's not there, he's gone now, he's not in my life anymore. So I find it really weird how my mum's passing was the reason for losing my friend. Right? So sometimes we don't get answers, do we? We don't get answers to things.
Do you know what? That's actually really interesting, because I noticed that when my mum passed away, that there were certain friends who distanced themselves. And what I put it down to is that they were the people who were scared of grief. They were the people who hadn't actually experienced perhaps a significant loss, or if they had, which in my case, they hadn't experienced a loss.
Okay.
Right? And so this is something, but I think that it's got something to do with, whether it's mortality, it's the other person's, fears. And I think this is why, we have wars and battles and feuds and things like that, because people, are just sitting in their own story and their own fear, and they're not realizing that, hey, if we let it go and we just talk, then we know that we're all normal.
Yeah. Well, can I give you my interpretation and tell me what you think? I thought that it was that these people couldn't deal with life becoming real. They were my friends when things were light and happy, and we'd go out and we'd laugh. But then when it got real, they weren't able to cope with it. I mean, it sort of ties in with what you were saying. It's like, they haven't had experience with grief. It became real. They didn't know what to say. They felt awkward. But it is, coming from my perspective, and I guess you're the same, I do feel like that's odd. It's odd for a friend to do that. That's why I think the word weird is quite appropriate.
Yeah. And it does hurt, but it's definitely on the other person, because remember, a lot of us, especially if we're in service to other people, we're able to go there, to the spaces that other people need in order to do the work that we do. Whereas some people
they're not able to. Yeah.
No.
All right. Next question. So, if you look at modern technologies in the last 10 years, what is something that you reject in that? Like, what is something that you think, oh my God, I'm not going to go there when you think of modern
Video
tech?
games.
Okay, so you've never really been a video game person.
No, do you know what? I never really moved past solitaire or, like, let's see, I do.
Atari? You didn't have Atari when you were little?
Well, I used to do that one and Pac-Man, but all of these games now, sometimes you're watching a preview or something, and it's like, is this a preview for a movie or a game? It's
yeah. So can you look at that from like, why do you think you've rejected that when you think about your work and your path in life? What was, try and think about what the reason is that you've chosen to not go into that realm. Again, think about the fulfillment part of it. Do you think that there's something about that world that you would know that would make you happy and it would distract you?
It's interesting because I love sci-fi. I love having a little Netflix binge or RuPaul binge or whatever binge, and so I do love those. But for me, the entertainment is a passive experience. I don't really want to go inside a world and actually, have to make these decisions and play, and go on a bit of a journey out there, because I'm going on a journey with every single client, and it's kind of like, for me, that's not to me, that is something that I do in the real world. It's not really something that I necessarily want to do, in my off time. So entertainment for me is like, I listen to Audible, read, watch movies, TV, stuff like that. But it's more of a passive enjoying it, stepping in and just being presented something.
Yeah. So how do you then, I'm adding this part in, so how do you feel about the fact that we're entering into the world of virtual reality, where they're trying to encourage kids and even us adults to go into this goggle world where we're not even present? So that is something. Do you think that's something that you're going to really struggle to get into, or even not even go into at all?
It's actually really funny, because lately I've been training with Dementia Australia. There's a workshop that we train, and it's called the EDI program. And EDI is the name of a fictional character, and you put on the virtual reality goggles and you experience what it's like to hear and see, through the eyes of the person with dementia.
Oh, I saw that on the news. I saw that on the news. Yeah. They had a story on the news.
Yeah, so I teach, that's one of the workshops that I run. And so, I'm there encouraging people to have that experience. And I can see this is actually where you're supporting it through growth, through learning, through having an experience to see something through other people's eyes. So that virtual reality technology, I love it. And I think it's really going to be a great opportunity to be able to see and experience other perspectives. Now, where, what is it, Ready Player One? That was
the game one, the games,
game one. I really hope we don't get to a passive experience where we're sitting down and doing that. However, it kind of looks fun, but it's, yeah, I don't know, maybe I will, hook in, because, I do like, gimmicks. I just don't like having to, shoot things all the time.
Yeah. I mean, and your explanation is really good. Like when it's done in a work experience or a learning experience, it's really, really, really good. Like, I saw something where kids had the goggles on and they were going and studying the planets, and they were actually, it felt like they were in space. So that is immersive. But when it comes to, the thing that I struggle with is when kids sit in their room for 3 or 4 days without leaving, and they're just playing and they don't see any sunlight. And to me, that is where I guess we need to be a bit more aware of what's going to really happen if we just let them stay in there. But I always fear that parents might be doing it too. So the whole household's doing it and no one's really paying attention to anyone.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Because even our age, people like our age and younger were really in those video games. We were, I suppose, teenagers when these video games were out. Even the first one where it was like ping pong. I remember doing that when I was a little kid. Just how much we've been involved. So it is the adults as well as the kids.
Yeah, because we've got that hook in. But anyway, let's move on to the next question. If you think about your time in primary school, what would have been a defining moment for you in primary school?
Defining moment.
Like a moment maybe that you realise something that's probably still with you now. Because we know that in child development, primary school is a big one. So that's where we sort of learn a lot about ourselves. So what was one of those for you? And it doesn't have to be at school, it could be at home as well. That's that age group.
Primary school was really, I loved primary school. I experienced some bullying in high school, but in primary school, it was a little Catholic school in a little country town. And I think there were about 12 or 14 in my class, and we went through pretty much, all the way. There was 12 kids. And so it was actually really, really nice. And we were all friends. And even if we fell out or had a fight with somebody, we'd get back together. I found grade 1 really hard because for me, I found it hard because I wanted to play with the girls and the girls wanted to play with other girls and I didn't want to play with the boys. So grade 1 was very hard. I probably think that I came into my own when I was about 10 and I really, they kind of, I was able to have the, playtime with the girls and the boys and I really liked it. So probably from 6 to 9, I did go through a little bit of a struggle and it was actually trying to find where I fitted into that process. It was a little bit of a, it was initially a bit of a shock, that there were rules that I didn't know about.
In high school?
No, primary school.
Right.
Like grade year 1. Like I grew up I was growing up on a sugarcane farm and, I had friends who were boys and girls, neighbors and stuff like that. And, I just felt like there were rules that, the girls did this, the boys did that. And it was the first time I'd actually noticed that. And because I've been doing a little bit.
Do you think that's because you were on the sugarcane farm and you didn't have like a more of a suburban, you didn't have access to like a lot of kids on a, because you weren't able just to walk into a shopping centre or go into the street like, like a suburban kid would. Is that probably why you didn't have much of it? Or was there kids around you?
In part, and I suppose in part because I didn't really notice the difference between boy and girl at that age.
Yes.
It was kind of like just people. And then in grade 1, I was kind of like all of a sudden I was presented where the boys wear this, the girls wear that. And it just, so that was kind of, and now shooting forward to now where I'm at, I've just recently done a little bit of training with ACON, about gender diversity and just sort of thinking, wow, that was a little bit of a shock where kids are actually confronted with, well, this is what boys do and this is what girls do. And so that sensitive little 6-year-old kid in me, like struggled with that for a little while until I learned how to play the game. Then when I went to high school, the girls disappeared. I went to an all-boys school, and that was a whole other, that was a bit of
how did that influence you with being, how does that influence you with finding happiness? Like, did you struggle a little bit with that when you were trying to figure it all out? Like, was there a period of time that you weren't happy?
I figured somewhere around the age of 12 years old, 12, 13 years old, that life was harder for some kids than others. And so I actually believed that happiness wasn't as easy for me as it would be for others, because it would be harder for me to play or get along with boys or, and to sort of fit these molds. So it was more, particularly in high school, it wasn't about happiness, it was about getting through.
Yes.
And so I had, like I studied drama, as a speech and drama group outside of school. And that was kind of like the saving grace because it was where I could actually be me and I was accepted. But then I'd have to go back into this little bubble when I went back into high school.
Yeah. Like, see how, like, this is what I meant when I spoke to you before, how the questions find you. Because the next question is, tell us how art is represented in your life. Say
that again?
Tell us how art is represented in your life. So art could be theatre, it could be paintings, it could be, so arts was a big thing, I guess, for you.
Well, definitely, especially the arts, because it was a big thing in my teen years, because it was an escape as well. In a world of, well, actually, maybe that was my video game alternative escape, because, I would go to a Stedford's and I would sort of perform, and you'd sort of be assessed, and I'd do okay. And so it was kind of like where I built my self-esteem.
Yeah.
And so the arts, and this field was an area where I was told that I was good at something. And it was the first time I was actually told that I was good at something. And so then I wanted to be an actor, for quite a while. And and I'm not, and I haven't been an actor.
Well, you sort of are in a way. You're not like an actor like on television, but you can put on masks of compassion and of someone that can listen and someone that can facilitate. And because I did theatre as well, and I think that really does help you to find, because in reality, self-esteem and confidence is just someone that doesn't think. They're just themselves, right? So I think, when people find what they really love and they find their fulfillment, then they're confident, because they don't have to second guess themselves. It's only when, I guess, they do something that they may be, they're overthinking, am I good enough, versus just doing it, I guess to lead on into that, what would you say would be your biggest quirk?
Oh, my biggest quirk. Okay. Well, I mean, it could be that I love RuPaul, and I love drag race.
Have you ever done drag?
Yeah. Do you know what? I've done sort of like a bit of loose drag, like I've never actually done it like to that level.
Did you go out?
Yeah, actually, I went to a drag party. This was a few years ago, and one of my neighbours, she lent me some of her clothes, and another friend lent me a wig, and was all done up, and then had to leave her apartment and drive over to this party, and walked past a couple in the foyer, and there were mirrors everywhere, and I saw this guy, he had his arm around his girlfriend, and he turned around and checked me out, and I was like, yeah, I don't know what he was checking me out for, but it was just really, really funny. So yeah,
So the quirk is the quirk you like watching RuPaul, or is the quirk the fact that you enjoyed actually becoming something else?
I actually enjoyed I suppose a periodic quirk when is. Have you ever been to Confest?
No.
Confest is.
But I can imagine it's like the comical thing. It's all those outfits, isn't it?
No. Confest is like a bush camp that's held around Easter.
Yes. So not Comic-Con. Yeah, I'm thinking about Comic-Con.
No, and so Confest is like very, very free loving. There's naturists there. You can wear as much or as little as you like. There's entertainment. People do drumming and fire twirling, and it's very creative and a lot of creative stuff. It's probably a more earthy Australian version of Burning Man with far less drugs. But going to Confest, you can just wear whatever you want. And so if I want to, throw on a frock and just walk around, or just walk around the sarong or something like that. I just love to be able to just wear what I want, what feels good. And so, I love that, because. So
is that like there's no rules there at all? It's like rule-free place, is it?
Rule-free, just be respectful and kind.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very open-hearted community.
Yeah. And it sounds like, that's some of your answers. That word being free and knowing who you are is something that I think you really gravitate towards to be happy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I get the feeling for that for you.
Very important.
Yeah. And so, again, it's interesting how if you think about the sugarcane field and not identifying with boy and girl, and then talking about Comic-Con, I feel like you are, in essence, you're the same person. There's this part of you as a little boy that just wants to be in this place where you don't have to label anything, which, again, it really is part of what this podcast is about. So for the last question, the question is, okay, what do you feel most, like 100% sure that you'll be famous for?
Oh, really?
Like, what do you think that if you were to pass and people would Wikipedia you, what would be the headline? Peter Hoare was famous for?
Well, a few things. I've done psychic readings at King's Cross Market for 7 years. I don't do it there, but I always thought, I was that sort of psychic guy that, was down at King's Cross Market. It sounds pretty out there, but, I'm still known in the community.
I think it's fantastic.
In Sydney, there's a Sydney Gay Meditation group, so I'm known as a meditator. And leading the meditation group.
I want you to think about something that maybe you're not doing yet.
Okay.
I want you to think of it in the future, right? What do you think's coming that you're going to be famous for? Maybe you will be a famous actor.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. Look, there is a book coming. Okay. So I would like to be known and remembered for the words that are in this book.
I love that. Okay, so famous author coming from Sydney, Australia, Peter Hoare.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Peter, just before you go, do you want to just give our listeners just one little message that you want to give them about what seeking happiness should be about? What would you want to leave the listeners with?
Joseph Campbell is somebody who really inspires me. He's an anthropologist, and he talks about the modern mythology of the world is about people trying to slay the dragon. The dragon being, I'll be happy when I pay that bill. I'll be happy when I pay off my mortgage, or I'll be happy when I get that relationship. Whatever it is, slaying the dragon. And he says the way to achieve happiness is to put down your sword, stop trying to slay the dragon, turn around and follow your bliss. And those words are my inspiration. Just put down your sword, turn around, follow your bliss. Just keep doing what you love. I can whinge, I can bitch, I can moan, I can complain, I can all of the above. But the thing is, none of that's bringing me joy and happiness. What is when I actually stop, take a breath, and ask myself, what would I love to do right now?
Yes. That's beautiful. I mean, I want to say thank you because I just want to share with everyone before we go. Like, I remember doing a reading with you before when I was in the depth of my illness and I was really feeling low and sad. And I remember, everything that you said has come true for me. So I just want to say, thank you so much for really, really inspiring me to get out of my darkness and now be in the light. And I always remember that, what you said to me was one of those things about stopping. I had to stop and just really acknowledge what's going on. So thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your EUDAIMONIA connection to happiness. And I wish you all the best. And I'll put everything below so people can find you if they want to.
Terrific. Thanks, Joe. It's been great chatting.
Thank you.
I'll see you again soon.
Okay, you've been listening to the EUDAIMONIA Connection podcast. Now, the podcast is out every Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month. So we're only producing this once a month. And that way, we actually are able to find real inspirational people and not just have to rush them through like if we had to do 4 a month. So make sure that you go out, seek your fulfillment by listening to what Peter said, stopping and taking stock of what's around you and just enjoying that. Until next time, everyone, namaste. Bye.